weekend news, we catch up on our nonsense. Extra, extra, hear all about it. Hey guys, just heads up, I mentioned it in the episode, but I'm going to start streaming, these on Wednesday mornings, at twitch.tv/thedeanslater. So if you ever want to join in on the conversation, head there. And then the podcast from now on is going to go up on Thursdays. So, make sure you get in on that. So, that's just a heads up. Back to the show. Hey guys, and welcome to the podcast that has a lot of splaining to do. I'm the Dean of Games, or if you're watching right now, the Dean Slater on Twitch. As well as all social media platforms that I am on. I'm not joined by anyone today. And this is Extra Extra, your weekly gaming news podcast covering the news leading up to whenever I actually end up posting this. We've got some housekeeping to deal with that. If you like us, you can go to patreon.com/thebriefingroom for some cool content. Let's get to some news. So first things first. First thing I want to bring up is the fact that we haven't had any content in a hot second. We've not had content in a hot second. So, as you all are aware, Landon's been on a sabbatical, a leave of sorts. He still wants to come in. He still wants to do it. It's just a matter of life. And that's as comfortable as I am talking about that because it's not my thing to talk about. Gavin also decided to go on a sabbatical, which put me in a bind, and I had some stuff going on as well. But I took a couple week break, like a week and a half break, and then I think we've been gone 3 weeks. I spent the next week and a half trying to figure out what format to use for this situation. And so what I've decided is I'm going to stream me doing the podcast. And so again, that is twitch.tv/thedeanslater. If you ever want to participate in the discussions, at the moment I'm planning on doing it on Wednesdays. Simply because I already stream on Sundays, and I stream 2 days a week at the moment, so it'd be weird for me to do 3 streams, but 2 of them on the same day, So, for the entire week. So I'm thinking doing it on Wednesday and kind of splitting it up. It's a weird, awkward day transition. But that's something I'm still going through. yeah, so that's what I've been going through on my end. Um, and as far as where the podcast has been, you can see right behind me, there's Matthew. I'm still trying to figure out what to do with him as well. Um, there's still a lot up in the air, a lot in limbo. Uh, like I said, Landon and Gavin still are a part of the podcast. They're just on a little break. Um, so yeah, anyway, uh, let's get down to business to defeat the Huns. Um, lot of news dropped. So let me see if I can find some of the stories I want to talk about. Uh, da, da, da. Let's see. Where is it? First things first. Here we go. Here's the story. UK, the CMA, the Commissions and Market Authority, blocked Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard, or as we've been calling it on the podcast, if you've been listening, the Actquisition. So they said it would lessen competition in cloud gaming. After the future of the fast-growing cloud gaming market, leading to some reduced innovation and less choice for UK gamers over years to come. So it's one of those things, right? I'm not on a capitalistic front. I am not in support of this deal. But I am in support of getting Bobby Kotick the fuck out of there, and the only way that happens is through this acquisition. I think the company would be much better out of Bobby Boy's hands. But on the capitalistic side, I'm not a big fan of the the reduction of companies into, just a couple banners. But it's going to happen whether Microsoft does it or it's Sony does it or, whatever. There is going to be a bigger company that swallows it up. That's just the nature of the capitalistic beast. It's weird that they named cloud gaming, especially with one of the other stories that came out within the time that we had our break, which I'll get to here in a minute. I don't know how to. It's weird the way the CMA, like a lot of people have pointed out to me in particular, when I've talked about some of the weird things the CMA has said, and they've been like, oh well, they do one of the most research out of all the authorities, and they've never had a decision successfully appealed. I'm not sure that's a good thing either. And from the entire case, having covered it since the beginning. Some of the things that the CMA has said makes me think they don't know what they're talking about, right? They some of the comments they've made about, Call of Duty, which ended up not being an issue at all, but some of the things they've said about Call of Duty and about gaming in general, and then this cloud gaming stuff, it's just kind of weird. Cloud gaming is never going to be the thing. It's always going to be a niche, just like VR is always going to be a niche. There's going to be a market for it, but there is a massive contingent of gamers that don't want input latency. They don't want they want to be able to hit a button and your character do the action right away. And cloud's not the way. So for that reason, I don't think the cloud thing's as big of an issue as the CMA is making it out to be. But who knows? Hold on. Hello? Oh, well, okay. I'll have to put up the screen then. So, yeah, I said I was going to be live. Okay. Okay, bye. Women am I right? What? Why'd you call me again? Weird. Anyway. Sorry about that, guys. So continuing on with news that we've missed, in our little sabbatical, our gaming news sabbatical. I will actually need my phone for this. I took the notes directly for this. And going back to Microsoft, Kind of Funny's XCast did a interview with Phil Spencer. This was right after the CMA blocked their acquisition. It was after they released a dud of a game in Redfall, which Landon and Gavin were pretty excited about that game. And so on the CMA, he had this to say. They defined a cloud gaming market that, in my mind, doesn't exactly exist today. He said at the time, and it's increased since then, they've gotten approval from approximately 9 of the 14 regulatory boards that they need approval from. That's now 10 out of the 14. And they plan to appeal and still are confident in their success on appeal against the CMA. I've kind of already addressed CMA, so we're going to move on to his thoughts on Redfall. To which he says, "There's nothing more difficult for me than disappointing the Xbox community. I'm upset with myself. We'll revisit our process. One thing I'll fight for," and of course I'm cutting it down for length because it was an hour podcast, so I'm upset with myself. We'll revisit our process. One thing I'll fight for is creative aspirations. I want to give teams a creative platform to push their ability and aspirations. And the Metacritic for Redfall was double digits lower than the Xbox mock reviews. And teams overall have upped the quality of their games. Thank you. I love you. Have upped the quality of their games. When asked about delaying a game, he said that they've got to ask the question, did we deliver on our creative vision? If it's a no, then it's not a delay. We'll put out games that review in the high 80s and games in the 60s. If you're afraid of that, you shouldn't be in the games business. Uh, if we deliver something below our personal expectations, we should check our process. A game needs to be delayed when production timeline doesn't get us to the completion of the creative vision. We want to support the creative ambitions of the team, and we want to support the players. We let a lot of people down, but we will continue to strive on. This is an interesting concept, because it is, and Gary Whitta of the XCast mentioned this too. The reason we get, people complain, oh, we're just getting more battle royales. Oh, we're just, it's just a copy of this. Oh, Marvel movies are so watered down now, stuff like that. We're getting that because companies are afraid of doing something different. When they do something different, they don't make their money back. And so they don't try anything different. So what we need to do is, if there is something, even if it's not good, if there is something that is different enough, we need to kind of support it, essentially. It hurts everyone if something that's different fails. Because if something that is different fails, that means everyone will go back to what worked, which usually leads to a very vanilla products and such. So, I think that's interesting. I like that they are wanting, and the other thing is, you spend, especially with these big AAA titles, they're to the point now where they're spending almost a decade, if not more, just making that single game. So at that point, teams get kind of burnt out. So if they want to make a smaller game, they can then make a smaller game, and Xbox doesn't shy away from that, and then they don't feel that burnout that you can get when you work on the same thing for a decade. He had this to say about communication. Because Paris Lilly asked, about their lack of communication with the audience, and they put out that showcase for Jeff Keighley's show last year, and they're, well, not Jeff Keighley, but they put it around that time, the summertime, where they're like, this is what's coming out in the next 12 months, and there's several games that didn't meet that 12-month period. And he had this to say, oh no, it's not necessarily. We didn't deliver on that 12-month promise. I'll even go back to us showing Redfall running at 60 frames per second on PC, knowing at that point it would only be running 30 frames per second on console. Transparency has to get better, and I'm not pointing at anyone other than myself. Which is a sign of good leader. Now, granted, he can say that all he wants out of closed door, out in the open, but what does he actually say behind closed doors? We've yet to actually have anyone come out and say anything about that, so we'll just at the moment have to take him at his word. But obviously he can say, oh, I'm blaming myself, but it could just be a situation where he's not blaming himself. But I will give him credit, as they gave him credit on the podcast as well. I will also give him credit. Phil Spencer coming on to talk about that is extraordinarily brave, because those questions, he knew those questions were coming up. And like Nintendo, like even Kit and Krista on their podcast talked about it. If it was Nintendo, there would be a media blackout. No one says anything to the media. If something like that were to happen. So, and Sony's the same way. They wouldn't say anything if, if there was a situation like this. So it is actually a great thing that he did do the interview, regardless of whether he's, giving us, giving us bullshit. At the very least, it shows something that Xbox cared enough to not do a media blackout at all. Okay. So on the future, he had this to say, and again, as I mentioned before, I'm paraphrasing a lot of these quotes. There was a fantastic discussion. I don't want to take away from Kind of Funny's content, so please support them. Support this episode if you want the actual context of everything. I'm just kind of narrowing it down to the base idea of his quotes. I cannot stress that enough. These are paraphrasing to kind of condense it down and let you guys support Kind of Funny yourselves. They are fantastic. They have fantastic podcasts. I listen to just about everyone they do. But on the future, he said, I'm not trying to oversell, because if I was in the same place as you, I wouldn't believe anything till I got my hands on the controller. But things are lining up finally. But I can now see games coming out every quarter. But we have to do it at quality. We have to do it on time, and we have to show people what they will actually see. We have to put great games in the hands of players. There's nothing else. And then finally, on learning from the mistakes of Redfall and everything else, and the failure to have the games come out that they said would come out, we need to improve engaging on games that are midway through development when they join Xbox. We need to be there. We needed to be there earlier for the Redfall team. On the console experience, we have a different vision. We want people who are playing on console, PC, and cloud. This is on console experience. That was on learning. They need to improve on engaging on games. On the console experience, he had this to say: we have a different vision. And this is the one that blew up on social media rather irresponsibly, in my opinion, for a lot of the outlets. But that's an issue for another time. We have a different vision. We want people who are playing on console, PC, and cloud to feel like members of our ecosystem. We're not in the business of out-consoling Sony or Nintendo. There isn't a great solution or win for us. We're not in a position where we can build great games and everything would just turn around. We lost the worst generation to lose with the Xbox One, where everyone built their digital libraries. It doesn't match the reality. Creators want to build games that meet players on any screen. People play with their friends regardless of what screen they're on. And again, like I said, that's all those. That's all that. I mentioned this. I'll mention it again. Great interview. I recommend checking it out. It's the Xcast. I could not imagine being in his position, having to do all that. But even he admitted, and this is my opinion on it, I'm not going to believe anything he says till I see it for myself. Seeing is, in fact, believing. And I am not going to quite believe him yet. So let's go ahead and go back here. So, the European Commission, which is separate from the UK's Commissions and Market Authority, because obviously there was the split, the notorious split from the EU. But the European Commission approved the acquisition. So they had this to say. To address the competition's concerns identified, Microsoft offered the following licensing commitments with a 10-year duration. A free license to consumers in the EEA that would allow them to stream via any cloud game streaming service of their choice all current and future Activision Blizzard PC and console games for which they have a license. A free license. That is insane. We're going to get back to that one. A corresponding free license to to cloud game streaming service providers to allow EEA-based gamers to stream any Activision Blizzard's PC and console games. These licenses ensure that gamers that have produced one or more Activision games on PC or console store, or that have subscribed to a multi-game subscription service that includes Activision games, have the right to stream those games with any cloud game streaming service of their choice and play them on any device using any operating system. That detail is interesting, right? Because as I mentioned, and the CMA then came out and blasted the European Commission on their opinion. But that is huge. The CMA decided to block. What is going on with my mouse? Decided to block because of cloud. The problems that would correspond with a young cloud gaming platform, which I already mentioned. It's a very young, nascent industry, and it's going to stay pretty niche because you're never going to fully fix the latency issues, and gamers, the vast majority of gamers, don't want latency with their games. So because of that, it's going to stay like VR, where it's going to stay very niche. But the fact that these cloud game streaming services have a free license, meaning they don't have to pay Microsoft a dime for Activision Blizzard games. They have the free license. That, I cannot stress enough how crazy that sounds that they blocked that when the other cloud gaming services don't have to pay Microsoft for the Activision. If that deal gets blocked, sorry, I'm playing with my notepad a little bit. If that deal gets blocked on appeal, those streaming platforms actually get a worse end of the deal when it comes to the to Activision Blizzard games, because they will have to then pay Activision Blizzard in order to get the license to allow their players to stream those games. Whereas with the deal, they don't have to pay anything for 10 years. That allows them so much ability to actually build their brands, while paying significantly less money to build those brands. It feels like there's something else going on with the CMA. I wonder if it is, an issue where they're trying to be detractors, just be detractors. Again, I'm not sure it's the best for the industry as a whole, for all this consolidation and everything, but that's That's crazy. So let's actually get to recent news. Okay, come on, man. Okay. So, I'm gonna be playing this a little later anyway. What the fuck? What the fuck? My mouse is doing all sorts of crazy things. Tears of the Kingdom is only the 6th game in 30 years to get it. Both a Famitsu 40 and Edge 10. It's also the 4th Zelda game to do it, so maybe it's just that they're Zelda fans, but holy shit. I love... It's the NSA. Yeah. They, and thank you for joining the stream, Dr. Rampier. Zelda, beautiful game. Love that game. I spend every moment not playing it thinking about playing it. It is that good. It also made a bunch... I don't see the story here, but it also made a shit ton of money opening up. So, yeah, I could go on and on about how much I love that game, but I'm going to be playing it right after I end this podcast. So if you want to check me playing games, twitch.tv/TheDeanSlater. But hold on. Uber D12. I'm not familiar with that. Oh, here we go. Hey, Lyric. Oh. Let's see. Super Mario coming out this month on Nintendo Switch Online. Super Mario Advance 1, 2, and 3 for the GBA. Mystery Tower on the NES. Cosmo Gang, the Puzzle SNES. Kirby Tilt and Tumble and Blaster Enemy. Enemy Below for the Game Boy. You heard it here first. Lyric never misses. So, that's what you want to know. That's what's happening on NSO. Nailed it. I'm not sure about D12. Dr. Rampier. But what I do know, speaking of things that could be much worse if they acquired Activision Blizzard. Oh, Dead Island 2. I've actually not played Dead Island 2. I'm not super interested in zombie games, so I wasn't sold on it to begin with. But I've heard mixed reviews, so I think it's just a matter of a taste thing. I always enjoy a fun game. You waited 9 years for that game. It was a very long time since they announced it. But yeah, Saudi Arabia has increased its stake in Electronic Arts. You paid $120 for a shit game. I'm sorry. Oh man. Yeah, that sucks. Saudi Arabia increased its stake in Electronic Arts. The increase of 55% of shares brings its ownership around 9% of EA. They also fully own SNK. They have a large stake in Nintendo. I don't know if it's much better than Tencent. I think they're both equally shit. Because Saudi Arabia is having journalists killed. They also have just like in China, they have human rights issues going on. I'm not sure I'm willing to go as far as to say it's better than Tencent, but they own. They raised their acquisition in Nintendo from 5.1% in May 2022, 6% in January of this year, then to 7% and then 8% again. No, they're not better. I think they're pretty equally shit. They have $3 billion worth of stock in EA, to be exact. And then, I don't know, I don't see any other games listed, but I know they fully own SNK, for sure. That one I know for sure they fully own. They have a lot of stuff. Germany only had, I don't know. And I think, yeah, we're getting close to time, and I think that's a lot of the big stories that have come out in our several week absence. And mobile games. Oof. You know, I'm not a mobile gamer in the slightest, but man, my family has so much interest in mobile games. They and because of that I can't talk too much shit about mobile games. Mobile games are a massive financially are a massive portion of gaming. And actually we've talked about it on the podcast before. Candy Crush, I was actually about to bring up Candy Crush. So I personally, we've talked about this on the podcast, I personally believe that, you know, as much as a big deal was made about Call of Duty, I think that Microsoft was interested in Activision Blizzard more for King than for, you know, World of Warcraft or, you know, Overwatch or Call of Duty. I think they were after King because of that slice of the mobile market. But that's just me. Anyway, let me go ahead and do my podcast outro, and then we'll get back into some Tears of the Kingdom stuff. So let's pull that up. If you liked, or even if you didn't like this podcast, be sure to do all of the things, like hitting the like button and the subscribe button and the bell at the XofPlays on YouTube, or giving it a high rating on whatever podcast service you use so you can find like-minded people. Be sure to tell people about the show. Oh, hell yeah. Hey, thanks, Doctor, for the follow. Be sure to tell people about the show. Word of mouth is the best way to help us grow. And I brought it up before, but on patreon.com/thebriefingroom, you can financially support the show and get cool rewards as well. That's all from us. Take care.